We're still working on finishing off Volume 2, Chapter 5. We stopped last week on page 170, but it was kind of like in between a couple of points. So I'm going to go back, and since we're continuing in this section to discuss the significance of the ceremony in the air, I'm going to recap the ceremony in the air to make sure everybody's on the same page with what we're talking about here. Because I had made a note from the last video. I said, about the 59-minute or 1 hour mark, there was some things coming out of my mouth that I wanted to make sure were very, very clear. Okay, and it had to do with this comment on page 166 where President Ikeda says, or Saito says, that the Daishonin uses the Lotus Sutra ceremony in the air to reveal the meaning of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo as apparent from the format of the Gohonzon. And he says also above that, if the Daishonin, pardon me, maybe I'm mixed up here. I thought I had this already marked. Okay, here it is. Pardon me. No, below that then. President Ikeda, in terms of the essential versus the theoretical teaching, the fundamental law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo constitutes the essential, and the ceremony in the air the theoretical. The Daishonin uses the theoretical to reveal the essential. And I had associated the two. I said, who attained Buddhahood in the ceremony in the air? No one. Okay, so I checked. At first I freaked out because I thought maybe I was, because obviously the Lotus Sutra's got people that attain Buddha. The Dragon King's daughter, if nobody, if nothing else, there's somebody that attains Buddhahood in the Lotus Sutra. But that's also in the theoretical first 14 chapters, right? Mm-hmm. So let me go back to the ceremony in the air and read the definition from the actual dictionary. It says on page 74, ceremony in the air, the second of the three assemblies described in the Lotus Sutra in which the entire gathering is suspended in space above the ground. The two other assemblies take place on Eagle Peak. The ceremony in the air is depicted from the latter half of the of the Treasure Tower 11th chapter through the Entrustment 22nd chapter of the Sutra. In the Treasure Tower chapter, the treasure tower of the Buddha many treasures emerges from beneath the earth and is suspended in midair. Shakyamuni, after summoning the Buddhas who are his emanations from the 10 directions, stations himself in midair, opens the treasure tower and enters it, taking a seat beside the Buddha many treasures. Then, using his transcendental powers, he lifts the entire assembly into space so that they are at the same level. This begins the ceremony in the air. The Treasure Tower chapter ends with Shakyamuni urging the audience to propagate the sutra in the evil age after his death. In the Encouraging Devotion 13th chapter, the innumerable bodhisattvas attending vow to fulfill the Buddha's will, even if they must endure persecution by the so-called three powerful enemies. In the Emerging from the Earth 15th chapter, the bodhisattvas of the other worlds make the same vow, but the Buddha refuses to entrust the mission to them. At that moment, the bodhisattvas of the earth make their appearance. This marks the beginning of the essential teaching of the sutra. In the Lifespan 16th chapter, Shakyamuni reveals his original enlightenment, the enlightenment he attained numberless major world system dust particle kalpas in the past. In the Supernatural Powers 21st chapter, Shakyamuni transfers the essence of the sutra specifically to the bodhisattvas of the earth, led by bodhisattva superior practices, entrusting them with this propagation in the latter day of the law. In the Entrustment chapter, he transfers the sutra to all the bodhisattvas present. Then Shakyamuni's emanations return to their lands, the treasure tower reverts to its former position, and the ceremony in the air comes to an end. The heart of this ceremony consists of the revelation of Shakyamuni Buddha's original enlightenment and the transfer of the essence of the sutra to the bodhisattvas of the earth. Nichiren states that the object of devotion he revealed as the Gohonzon is the perfect embodiment of the law, which is the essence of the Lotus Sutra, and that it is also a representation of the ceremony in the air, which is what these three guys have been talking about, right? Okay. In the real aspect of the Gohonzon reads, the Gohonzon was revealed in 8 chapters of the Lotus Sutra, from the emerging from the earth chapter through the entrustment chapter. It also reads, without exception, all these Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, great sages attending the ceremony in the air dwell in this Gohonzon. The fact that the ceremony takes place in the air signifies that it transcends the framework of time and space. So it transcends the framework of time and space, which means what?
It's
Everywhere.
That it's any time, any place. Anytime, any place. All right? And so that's that. Then I go to, pardon me, here. The emanations of the Buddha. Does everybody know about who the emanations of the Buddha are, where they come from, all that sort of thing? All right. When he talks about the sutra, when he talks about the Buddhas of the 10 directions, which is where Tentai ultimately got and that the essence of the 10 factors, that's where the 10 worlds comes from. All right. But the bottom line is that these emanations of the Buddha, where are they located? No, these emanations of Shakyamuni, okay, that he calls back to, because how many Buddhas are really there? There's the Buddhas seated on the lion's seat, but those are all emanation Buddhas. It's really Tahoe, it's really Many Treasures Buddha and himself, right? Okay, so it says emanations of the Buddha. So these emanations are what? Do you know anything about emanation Buddhas and what the significance, what the hell are they? Why are they there? Why are they a part of anything? All right. It's said in Buddhism that a Buddha can split himself up into 1,000 different entities and be in 1,000 different places preaching the law at the same time. Okay?
right.
Right, exactly. Sounds like a former day of the law kind of thing to me. All right. And that's what was actually occurred at the ceremony in the air. Shakyamuni called back all of his emanations that were elsewhere in the universe preaching the law according to the capacity of the people. Okay? So that means that they weren't necessarily in Buddha lands, as I had said last week. Okay? Because if they were preaching according to the capacity of the people, they wouldn't have been in Buddha lands. They would have been in whatever land would have corresponded. So let me go now to emanations of the Buddha. Also, emanation Buddhas or emanations. Buddhas who are separate manifestations of a true Buddha. So I could have some emanation Buddhas too. Okay. All right. Buddhas who are separate manifestations of a true Buddha, according to Mahayana belief, and this isn't the Daishonin's teaching, by the way. This is pulling all of that, in. According to Mahayana belief, a true Buddha can produce infinite emanations who can simultaneously appear in innumerable worlds in order to save the people there. Hence the phrase, the emanation Buddhas of the 10 directions, and other similar expressions that appear in the Lotus Sutra and other sutras. The Treasure Tower, 11th chapter of the Lotus Sutra, Shakyamuni summons to the assembly the Buddhas who are his emanations in the 10 directions in order to commence the ceremony in the air. Okay, so those Buddhas that came, other than Tahoe, were his emanations, right? Okay, so I'm going then to the emergence of the Treasure Tower chapter, which is really where this all begins. You with me still? We're really trying to get a handle on Tahoe and the emanation Buddhas and the purpose of why the ceremony in the air occurred. Emergence of the Treasure Tower chapter, abbreviated as the Treasure Tower chapter. The 11th chapter of the Lotus Sutra. This chapter describes the emergence of the Treasure Tower of the Buddha Many Treasures, who bears witness to the truth of the Lotus Sutra, and the beginning of the ceremony in the air. After the proclamations in the preceding chapters of the sutra that voice hearers and cause awakened ones will attain Buddhahood in the future, that's that prophecy of Buddhahood I was talking about before. They're going to become Buddhas. Ones will attain Buddhahood in the future. A magnificent tower adorned with the 7 kinds of treasures, 500 yojanas in height and 250 yojanas each in width and depth, emerges from beneath the earth and hangs suspended in midair. And as I said, those 500 yojanas equates to like about a third of the size of the earth itself. A voice issues from within, praising Shakyamuni Buddha and declaring that all he has taught thus far in the Lotus Sutra is true. Through the person of the Bodhisattva great joy of preaching, the assembly asks to know the meaning of this event. Shakyamuni explains that within the tower is the body of a Buddha called Many Treasures, who once lived in the land of treasure purity, an incalculable number of worlds to the east. Though he has long since entered nirvana, he has made a vow that he will appear in the treasure tower whenever anyone might preach the Lotus Sutra and testify to the truth of that sutra. By the way, if you ever see the expression, Rekha Rajani asked me about the earth shook in 6 different directions, 6 different ways. That also has to do with a premonition of the fact that the Lotus Sutra is about to be preached. So anytime he says the earth shook in 6 different ways, you know he's just talking about there's about to be a great declaration of a sutra. He says, though the person Bodhisattva great joy through the I'm going backwards again. Through the person of great Bodhisattva great joy of preaching, the assembly asks to know the meaning of this event. Shakyamuni explains that within the tower is the body of a Buddha called Many Treasures, who once lived in the land of treasure purity and an incalculable number of worlds to the east. Though he has long since entered nirvana, he has made a vow that he will appear in the treasure tower whenever anyone might preach the Lotus Sutra and testify to the truth of that sutra. Bodhisattva, great joy of preaching, then requests to see the figure of Many Treasures Buddha. And again, I'm expediting this rather than read you that chapter, right? Shakyamuni replies that in order to open the door to the treasure tower, he must first assemble from throughout the 10 directions those Buddhas who are preaching the law as emanations of himself. All right? And he proceeds to purify the lands 3 times to make room for the emanations. First, he purifies the Sahe world by removing all the human and heavenly beings other than the members of the assembly to other lands. Why? Because he has to turn it into a Buddha land.
Yeah.
Get it? All right? Leaving no one but the assembled multitude. He then uses his transcendental powers to purify 210,000 million Nayutas of lands in each of the 8 directions. In these lands there are no longer any beings of hell and the realm of hungry spirits, animals, and asuras, because he just removed them to make them all purified so they can all be Buddha's lands. So all the Buddhas can hang out and listen to the Lotus Sutra right now. Mm-hmm. Okay, get it? Or verify, validate like Many Treasures is, all right? So, in these lands there are no longer any beings of hell and of the realm of hungry spirits, animals, and asuras. That is, no beings of the 4 evil paths. In addition, Shakyamuni moves the human beings and heavenly beings to other lands so that these purified lands are not inhabited by any beings in the 6 paths, because if they're beings in the 6 paths, they can't be in Buddha lands. Do you get it? They're not in realization, learning, or realization, or bodhisattva. Okay, this 3 stages prior to being the Buddha. They're not being taught by Buddhas if they're in the 6th paths. He then purifies yet another 210,000 million Nayutas of lands in each of the 8 directions in the same manner. I guess to make sure that he's gotten enough done. Now that the Sahe world, this is the point, he's done all this for this purpose. Now that the Sahe world and the other groups of lands have been transformed into Buddha lands, in this way, all the Buddhas can assemble there. Okay? They can all...
It's clean.
Exactly. It's got to be clean or they don't count.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They only come where it's been purified, right?
Sanitized.
They come from throughout the 10 directions, seating themselves on lion seats under jeweled trees. They are all emanation Buddhas, all the rest of the Buddhas that appear in the sutra. Okay? When they have all gathered, Shakyamuni opens the treasure tower and Many Treasures Buddha invites him to share his seat. Everybody's with me now.
Yes.
I'm just clarifying all of this to you. Shakyamuni then uses his transcendental powers to raise the entire assembly into open space, so they're all floating, way high, higher in the sky than you can see. So they can see many treasures Buddha more clearly, and the ceremony in the air begins. Seated beside many treasures in the treasure tower, Shakyamuni then makes 3 pronouncements, calling upon the multitude to propagate the Lotus Sutra after his death. In the course of the 3rd pronouncement, he sets forth the 6 difficult and 9 easy acts to emphasize the great difficulty of embracing and propagating the Lotus Sutra after his death. Okay? Now, what's missing so far?
It's all about Sakyamuni.
Well, it's all about Shakyamuni,
Yeah.
but he's just now he's purified all the lands. He's called all the emanation Buddhas to be able to be there, right? But who still isn't there at the assembly? Huh?
Nichiren?
Well,
That's
one
the
could
one-
say so.
the-
As
that's the one.
superior practices, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, again, the bodhisattvas of the earth have not made their appearance yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so we just went from the 11th chapter, right? The 11th chapter. Now we're going to go jump up to the
16th?
no.
No?
The emerging from the earth chapter
Oh.
is where they not the lifespan yet.
Okay.
Okay, because they're going to emerge and everybody's going to go. That's what leads into the lifespan. Where the hell did they come from? How could you have taught all of them? Okay. So let me read that as well. Emerging from the earth chapter, and everybody knows that one, right? That's the 14th chapter, or the 15th.
15.
The 15th chapter of the Lotus Sutra and the beginning of the essential teaching, or the latter 14 chapters of the sutra. This chapter opens with innumerable great bodhisattvas who have assembled from other worlds, vowing to propagate the Lotus Sutra in the Sahe world after Shakyamuni's death. Bodhisattvas,
No.
not Buddhists. All right? This chapter opens with innumerable great bodhisattvas. Again, don't forget, even the bodhisattvas of the earth make their advent as bodhisattvas. Okay?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what their true identity is. All right? He says, this chapter opens with innumerable great bodhisattvas who have assembled from other worlds, vowing to propagate the Lotus Sutra in the Sahe world, not some other world, this world, after Shakyamuni's death. Shakyamuni stops them, however, saying that there is no need. Why? Why does he tell them there's no need for you guys to suddenly jump up and say you want to
It's
do
not
this?
yet the time.
Not only that, now is the time. Now is the beginning of the time. Okay? Well, no, actually, now is not the time. You're right. The latter day of the law is the time.
Yeah.
But the point is that the bodhisattvas of the earth, it's their job. It's not these other guys' job. That's what he's telling them. Shakyamuni stops him, however, saying that there is no need. The Sahe world already has great bodhisattvas who will carry out this task. With this, the earth trembles and splits open, and a host of bodhisattvas emerge, equal in number to the sands of 60,000 Ganges rivers, each with his own retinue. 4 bodhisattvas lead this multitude: superior practices, boundless practices, pure practices, and firmly established practices. Bodhisattva Maitreya, who's been with Shakyamuni from day one. He's like he's the guy that's been helping everybody along through all this process through these first 14th chapter. But he's going like, where'd you guys come from? Bodhisattva Maitreya, astounded at this sight, asked Shakyamuni Buddha on behalf of the assembly who these bodhisattvas are, where they come from, and for what purpose, what Buddha they follow, and what teaching they practice. Shakyamuni replies that they are his original disciples from whom he has been teaching since long ago. Maitreya again asks how, in the mere 40 years since his awakening, Shakyamuni has managed to teach so many countless bodhisattvas. He beseeches Shakyamuni to explain further, especially for the sake of people in the future who may have doubts about this point. The emerging from the earth chapter ends here, and of course, lifespan chapter starts 16. To answer Maitreya's question, Shakyamuni reveals in the next chapter, lifespan, that in reality, countless kalpas have passed since he first attained enlightenment. Okay? Everybody's with me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. These are not too good. All right. that's done. Now let's go back to chapter 5 and page where we left off, page 169. Okay, so but I'm gonna jump through and go back to 166, and I'm just gonna hit high points before we get to start to reread 169 from 170 on. He says the mandala endowed with the 10 worlds. So I'm just going to go what President Ikeda is talking about. He says the object of devotion for observing the mind. The Daishonin discusses the layout of the Gohonzon in detail. So it's already all discussed here. Okay. Then the president, after the Gosho has been quoted, President Ikeda says, "In form, the Gohonzon depicts a multi-tiered structure, like a pagoda." Okay. With the treasure tower of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo as its central axis, as we see it on the Gohonzon. The Daishonin also indicates in his writings, the real aspect of the Gohonzon. President Ikeda continues, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo in the center indicates the fundamental truth. Since Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is the central axis of life in the universe, it is expressed by the treasure tower that soars up in the center of the ceremony in the air. All right? On either side are the Buddha's Shakyamuni and many treasures. These Buddhas indicate the functions of Myoho Renge-kyo. Many treasures is the Buddha of the past, signifying eternal truth. He represents the law as the object of wisdom, objective wisdom, right? This is where we get into Kyochi Myogo. Okay? Shakyamuni is the Buddha of the present. He represented the actual wisdom to perceive the law. Indeed, these are the two aspects of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. The two Buddhas seated together indicates the fusion of reality and wisdom. Okay? Continuing, President Ikeda says on page 169, where there's, Saito on 168, that corresponds to the eternal and unchanging truth, as we said, the original state, revealed in the theoretical teaching, and the wisdom that functions in accordance with changing circumstances, the Buddhahood that perceives that truth. All right? That changeless, timeless, never beginningless time kind of truth. You understand? Right? So, okay, so then after that's been expressed, President Ikeda says that's naturally the point. But he says the important point is that we make neither Shakyamuni nor many treasures our object of devotion. Shakyamuni and many treasures both became Buddhas through Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. It is always Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the fundamental teaching for attaining Buddhahood, that we make our object of devotion. In terms of the layout of the Gohonzon, this is clear from the fact that Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is written large down the center with Shakyamuni and many treasures positioned to either side. President Ikeda, the Buddha who is awakened to Nam-myoho Renge-kyo unfailingly carries out bodhisattva practices to lead all people to enlightenment. So who would that refer to? I said it last week. Each and every one of us, we're all Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, thus come ones. We're bodhisattvas of the earth. We're actually already Buddhas who make their advent as bodhisattvas to lead others to bodhisattvahood. All right? He says, the Buddha who is awakened in Nam-myoho Renge-kyo unfailingly carries out bodhisattva practices to lead all, because again, bodhisattvas of the earth never go Titan in any lifetime. Right? They uphold the law in every lifetime. So he says, when unfailingly tells you immediately who he's talking about. They never fail to practice correctly or practice throughout their entire life. All right? He says, and the four bodhisattvas represent these bodhisattva practices that are representative of our conduct in the Sahe world as bodhisattvas of the earth, propagating the true teaching. He says on page 169, the reason superior practices, balanced practices, pure practices, and firmly established practices all have practices in their names is that they express the wisdom of enlightenment as actual conduct. That's what we do. We express the wisdom of enlightenment, of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, in our conduct as human beings. That's the way we're able to convince the other common mortals they're Buddhists, right? That is to say, they exhibit actions that are superior, boundless, pure, and unwavering, based on the boundless life force that is one with the Gohonzon, with Myoho Renge-kyo. President Ikeda on the bottom of page 169, and here we go. Saito, now I'm ready, I'm going. Saito, bottom of 169. In the section of the record of the orally transmitted teachings that deals with the emerging from the earth chapter, Nichiren Daishonin, citing a passage from the supplement to the words and phrases of the Lotus Sutra, correlates the four bodhisattvas with the four virtues of eternity, happiness, true self, and purity. And this is something that President Ikeda talks about all the time. All right? President Ikeda, going on to 169 and then continuing where we stopped on Saturday. The four virtues can be said to indicate a state of life that is forever, eternity, secure, true self, because you never stop being the Buddha, right? There can't be more secure state than that. Refreshed, purity, we come into each lifetime, not encumbered with lots of bad karma, but filled up with a treasure chest full of great karma, and joyful happiness, because that's the life we live. Okay? Morinaka, continuing on page 170 from Saturday. Morinaka, in the heritage of the ultimate law of life, the Daishonin says that the powers of the five elements of earth, water, fire, wind, and space, heaven, are functions of the five characters of Myoho Rengekyo. They're all functions of the Gohonzon. And the cluster of blessings brought by the bodhisattvas of the earth, disciples of the Buddha, in his true identity. Now, what's that cluster of blessings brought by the bodhisattvas of the earth, disciples of the Buddha, in his true identity? The blessings of being able to find out about the law and attain your original state, right? Okay? When does that happen? That doesn't happen until the bodhisattvas of the earth come. That's why it says that, what it just says. The five characters of Myoho Rengekyo, the cluster of blessings brought by the bodhisattvas of the earth, because the bodhisattvas of the earth are the ones that actually transmit and propagate in the latter day, when it's the viable, correct time for Nam-myoho Renge-kyo to make its advent. They're the ones that propagate it, right? So, the cluster of blessings brought by the bodhisattvas, the cluster of blessings brought unsought. President Ikeda, page 170. The bodhisattvas of the earth, manifesting the power inherent in life, protect and lead from suffering all living beings and the entire world by introducing the teaching that allows each individual to do that for themselves. They don't come in and save anybody. They provide the means for people to save themselves. All right? Morinaka. The Daishonin also says that the great bodhisattvas of the theoretical teaching, such as Manjushri and Maitreya, are all followers of the four bodhisattvas. Okay, so they're all followers of the bodhisattvas of the earth. They're minor, not major, compared to the bodhisattvas of the earth. What does this indicate, Morinaka asked President Ikeda. President Ikeda says, these bodhisattvas can be seen as representing various concrete functions of the inherent life force as it becomes manifest. It is well known in Japan that Manjushri symbolizes wisdom. Maitreya, who in Chinese is known as compassionate one or compassionate honored one, symbolizes compassion. What is the significance of those two things being linked together? What are those two things I'm talking about? Are you paying attention? I'm talking about compassion and wisdom. What is the point? What is the significance of them being linked just now? Is in him talking about Maitreya and Manjushri. Where does wisdom come from? Compassion. They're always linked. Compassion is what is the source of wisdom. All right? Okay, so the Daishonin says that all other major and minor bodhisattvas of the theoretical teaching and those from the other lands are not elevated in the air, but are on the ground. These bodhisattvas could be said to represent various altruistic practices or concrete actions taken to further the enlightenment of all people in accordance with their individual circumstances. These bodhisattvas are innumerable, and therefore they cannot all be depicted in the Gohonzon. Nevertheless, the Gohonzon unmistakably includes all of their benefit. Everybody's with me? Mm-hmm. All right. Morinaka, you with me? Mm-hmm. Do you understand why he just said what he said?
Mm-hmm. So you are not in there, but you are the...
Let me go back and read it again. These bodhisattvas, let me actually, again, he's talking about the bodhisattvas that preceded the bodhisattvas of the earth coming forth.
Oh,
okay, don't forget, there were bodhisattvas out the ass that preceded chapter 15, right? Emerging from the earth, right? Okay. So he's really now talking, so that's what he says on page 170. The Daishonin says also the great bodhisattvas of the theoretical teaching, the first 14 chapters, such as Manjushri and Maitreya, are all followers of the bodhisattvas that appear in the 15th chapter that lead to Kuan-Ganjo. Mappo. Mappo goes to Kuan-Ganjo, 10,000 years and beyond, right? Okay, so now he says, these bodhisattvas, talking about those prior to 15th chapter, can be seen as representing various concrete functions of the inherent life force as it becomes manifest. So what is he talking about? They represent the stepping stones of expedient means, because that's what the theoretical teaching is. It's expedient means. We don't just jump into the lifespan chapter and go, aha, I get it. It doesn't work that way, does it? No. Okay. So he says, so then the Daishonin says, all the other major and minor bodhisattvas of the theoretical teaching and those from the other lands are not elevated into the air because they're not part of the essential Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. They're expedient meanses. Get it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm making up words to make it understand. Okay. And that's why they're on the ground. Because they haven't gotten in the air. Okay? They haven't gotten the Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. They're theoretical. They're not actual. Okay? These bodhisattvas could be said to represent various altruistic practices, the little things that we do to try that are good causes that create the merit that get us there, right? Or concrete actions taken to further the enlightenment of all people in accordance with their individual circumstances. They're specific to a karmic reality and function that they possess. These bodhisattvas are innumerable, and therefore they cannot all be depicted in the Gohonzon as separate characters, he's saying. But they are all depicted in the Gohonzon as is explained by Nichiren. All right? Nevertheless, the Gohonzon unmistakably includes all of their benefit. All right? Morinaka, the Daishonin says that the Buddhas from the other worlds of the 10 directions also remain on the ground. These Buddhas of the 10 directions are Shakyamuni's emanations.
They are still on the ground. But yeah, because he is in the provisional teaching.
Yes, he's a provisional Buddha. We don't chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo.
No.
Okay, now that's a sneaky way to say it, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's not putting him down. It's qualifying the reality of what's being expressed in that sutra, the highest teaching of the Buddha Shakyamuni. The Daishonin says that the Buddhas from the other worlds and the 10 directions also remain on the ground. These Buddhas of the 10 directions are Shakyamuni's emanations. They are Buddhas of the manifested body who carry on Shakyamuni's spirit and expound the teaching in their respective lands, according to people's capacity. According to people's capacity. Okay? We don't do that, do we? That's Shoju. We do Shakabuku, right? We're true Buddhists because we have the truth to talk about. We don't have to use expedient means, right? President Ikeda, from one standpoint, it can be said that the Buddhas from the worlds of the 10 directions each symbolize a fragment of Shakyamuni's teaching, right? Because you got some that will apply to people that are in hell, some that will apply to people in hunger, and these guys are all going to different worlds that are specific about that, right? Okay, so from one standpoint, it could be said that the Buddhas from the worlds in the 10 directions each symbolize a fragment of Shakyamuni's teachings. They expound partial aspects of the mystic law, which is perfect truth, in accord with people's circumstances and capacities. In accordance with people's circumstances and capacities. Totally in relationship to the karmic causes they've made, the influences they've created to know this as truth or expedient means. Okay? This could be described as teaching in accordance with others' minds. Which is what? Shoju.
Huge.
Alright? Shakabuku is teaching in accordance with the mind of the Buddha. Alright? Saito, in the real aspect of the Gohonzon, after describing the countless beings of the 10 worlds, Nichiren Daishonin says, without exception, so that means none of them are excluded, all these Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, great sages, and in general all the various beings of the 2 worlds and the 8 groups who appear in the introduction chapter of the Lotus Sutra dwell in this Gohonzon. So who's at the introduction chapter?
Introduction.
The introduction chapter is the chapter 1. It follows the
Shakyamuni.
no
Chapter 1.
no it follows the Immeasurable Meaning Sutra,
Oh, yes.
right? And what is Shakyamuni doing in chapter 1? He's in a deep meditation. That's why they're saying, like, what's going on? Oh, he's in a deep meditation, but the earth just trembled in 6 different directions. I think he's about ready to say some really heavy shit. Okay? Maitreya saying all this, or Manjushri, whoever it was. One of the 2 of them is explaining to everybody what's going on. Okay? So he says, where am I? Right there. Okay. Without exception, all these Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, great sages, and in general, all the various beings of the 2 worlds and the 8 groups who appear in the introduction chapter of the Lotus Sutra dwell in this Gohonzon. So what he's saying is that everybody that's in the introduction chapter is there, as well as the Bodhisattvas of the earth, as well as Tahoe Buddha. Okay? Everybody's in the Gohonzon. Right? Illuminated by the light of the 5 characters of the mystic law, they display the dignified attributes that they inherently possess. This is the object of devotion. So everything in the Lotus Sutra is also present in the object of devotion, the Gohonzon. Daisaku Ikeda on page 171. Each of these beings of the 10 worlds who have gathered before the mystic law of the treasure tower each of these beings of the 10 worlds who have gathered before the mystic law of the treasure tower embodies a part of the function of the mystic law. Illuminated by the light of the mystic law, they manifest themselves as entities of the mystic law and display the dignified attributes that they inherently possess. Displaying their unique character, they express the richness of the mystic law. This is the meaning of revealing one's intrinsic nature. When the light of the sun passes through a prism, it divides into a continuous spectrum of many colors from red to violet. The light of the sun is the totality of these colors. Each individual color is a portion of that light. The light of the sun contains countless hues. Therefore, when it shines on something, some of its colors are absorbed and some are reflected back, and this produces the various shades we see. Morinaka, were it not for the light of the sun, this would not be possible. For instance, if you attempt to diffract through a prism the light of a sodium lamp, such as those found in highway tunnels, you only get a yellowish band of light, and that's why everything appears yellow in such light. The result is a monochromatic scene in which things are distinguishable not by color, but by relative brightness. What did that just all say? Did you guys catch that? Let me go back. Okay. So first he's qualified. Everything is in the Gohonzon, even all the people, everybody from the Mahakras and all the Manuka Nakawako Bukus, okay? All the weird shit that's, we don't even know what the hell he's talking about, right? That's all in the Gohonzon. It's all in the Gohonzon, all right? Then he's going on to say here, on 171, very bottom thing, each of these beings of the 10 worlds who have gathered before the mystic law of the treasure tower embodies a part of the function of the mystic law. Illuminated by the light of the mystic law, they manifest themselves as entity of the mystic law and display dignified attributes that they inherently possess. Displaying their unique character, they express the richness of the law. What is he saying? That's why I just read all that shit, just so I could go back to say, what is he saying when he just said that?
It's all included.
It's not only all included, but what happens by virtue of it being all included? There's nothing excluded. Okay? And by virtue of nothing excluded, everything takes on the aspect of Buddhahood, whether it's hell all the way up to Buddhahood.
Yep.
Get it?
Yes.
And he's saying by virtue of that varying reality of different life conditions, all being from the same source, okay, we're able to exclude no one. Everyone's able to manifest Buddhahood, and that's the richness that he's talking about when he says this displays the richness. Yeah, we're not just a single color. That's what he's saying. We're all different colors. We're all unique. No one of us is the same. We don't have to be the same. That's what that is saying. All right? We all manifest based on what? Our karma, our causality, our devotion. That determines how much of the Gohonzon we're able to reveal in our life. You know, how much of the Gohonzon are we in real life? Or is it something that's hanging in our altar that we humbly praise and worship as though it were something outside of ourselves? Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, good. Where am I? Here we go. The mystic law. Okay, so we got through the sodium lamp and the sun and the prism spectrum and all of that. You already understand that, right? Okay. President Ikeda, the mystic law is the ultimate source of life. It gives birth to and encompasses all things. Illuminated by the sunlight of this all-inclusive mystic law, everything shines with rich individuality. Okay? There's no cookie cutter. All right? Do you understand? So anybody that would insist that there be a cookie cutter element to practice or faith, Daisaku Ikeda doesn't. Guarantee you, I've read enough to know it so that I know it. Or else I'd reject him because I know that's not right. Okay? I'll say it again. The mystic law is the ultimate source of life. It gives birth to and encompasses all things, even the ugly things, even the stinky things, okay, even the impure things. Illuminated by the sunlight of this all-inclusive mystic law, everything shines with rich individuality. That's why somebody like me could reveal Buddhahood, all right, because I'm not a nice person. All right? The Daishonin explains that myo of myoho or mystic law has three meanings, right? We remember that, right? What are they? Remember, to open, to be fully endowed, to revive, right? The benefit of the Gohonzon naturally includes these three functions. The Gohonzon, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, has the power to unlock the Buddha nature in all people. It contains all benefit and embraces all capacities. And it has a revitalizing power to liberate people from all negative karma and misery. And by the way, and embraces all capacities. That's so key too. What's that saying? The Gohonzon, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, has the power to unlock the Buddha nature in all people. So regardless of their capacity, it could unlock their Buddha nature and activate it, right? It contains all benefit and embraces all capacity. So what does that say? It doesn't think more of you if you're of superior capacity and less of you if you're of inferior capacity. It's all equal. It's all equal. Because that you're going to go establish your relationships with your Kinzoku Myo, and you got to be who you are for them to listen to you, for them to follow you, for you to save them. All right? It also has the revitalizing power to liberate people from all negative karma and misery. In short, it has the power to enable everything to display its highest potential. It is the teaching of vitality and life. Morinaka, in his dialogue with you, President Ikeda, Dr. Lokesh Chandra, a learned Indian scholar, had the following to say about the ceremony in the air, page 173. The ceremony in the air, which centers on the treasure tower, indicates a unique doctrine of the Lotus Sutra. Shakyamuni, the Buddha of the present, and many treasures of Buddha from the infinite past are presented as completely equal. This symbolizes the eternal truth and infinite good fortune and benefit manifest in the life of each individual. In addition, it symbolizes the eternal truth and infinite good fortune and benefit manifest in the life of each individual. In addition, it indicates the principle of attaining Buddhahood in one's present form. Nichiren Daishonin not only read the Lotus Sutra, he also experienced it and put it into practice. With his life, he proved that the 5 characters of the Daimoku, Myoho Renge-kyo, are truly the direct path to attaining Buddhahood. The treasure tower of many treasures Buddha, rather than indicating the individual teachings within the Lotus Sutra, serves to highlight, the treasure tower of many treasures Buddha, rather than indicating the individual teachings within the Lotus Sutra, serves to highlight that all the teachings of this sutra and its spirit are superior. Therefore, the treasure tower is the Daimoku. It is the sutra itself. Therefore, the treasure tower is the Daimoku. It is the sutra itself. President Ikeda, that is very insightful. That's from Dr. Chandra. That was his opinion, right? President Ikeda, that is very insightful. In its vertical dimension, the treasure tower symbolizes the 3 existences of past, present, and future. And in its horizontal dimension, it symbolizes the law that is one with the Buddha and pervades the entire universe. When we face this treasure tower, we should aim for its lofty heights and aspire to improve ourselves without limit. Saito, with regard to the significance of a tower, the Japanese scholar of aesthetics Toshio Takeuchi says, a tower in rising to lofty heights lifts the spirit of those who gaze upon it, refining their thoughts towards pure spirituality. It therefore possesses a sublime quality. A tower symbolizes the elevation. Pardon me, guys. A tower symbolizes the elevation of one's reality toward a higher ideal. President Ikeda. The treasure tower is born from deep within the earth and soars high into the sky above the Sahe world. This symbolizes the emergence of the eternal source or foundation of this world. The passage through the harsh realities of this realm of suffering and the rising on towards the future and the fruition of lofty ideals. That's a long sentence, so let me start over. President Ikeda, the treasure tower is born from deep within the earth and soars high into the sky above the Sahe world. This symbolizes the emergence from the eternal source or foundation of this world, the passage through the harsh realities of this realm of suffering, and a rising on towards the future and the fruition of lofty ideals. Dr. Surya B. Shakya of Nepal, who incidentally is said to be descended from Shakyamuni's clan, explains that the ceremony in the air symbolizes the Buddha's immense state of life. He says that it includes within its present both the worlds of the 10 directions of the past and the world of the 10 directions of the future. According to the scholar, it is the state of Buddhahood that transcends time and space, and when we awaken to the realm expounded in the ceremony in the air, we gain the ability to accomplish anything. Dr. Saito, Dr. Margarita I. Voroboyova, this is a Russian lady, I don't know, Desiatokashayaka or something, of the St. Petersburg branch of the Institute of Oriental Studies of the Russian Academy of Sciences. The world-renowned scholar of the Lotus Sutra says that in her view, the lifespan chapter explains a state of life that is fused with the Buddha. She describes this as a concept that transcends time. The energy of the universe becomes one's own energy, she says. The scholar suggested that the state of life in which one can savor this sense of oneness with the universe is expressed in the Lotus Sutra as eternity. President Ikeda. Now, what did we just do? We just went through 3 different scholars, 3 different brainiac guys that are not Soka Gakkai members, okay? They're not religious people even necessarily. They're scholars. They're religious scholars, okay? We just went through all of their paraphrasing of their insight into what the ceremony in the air means to them, okay? And President Ikeda has, it's all been put in here to show the breadth of this element that links all of us. Okay, because we can't exclude everybody else and be our own little, you know, all right? So it says you got to get your head around the way other people think about this Lotus Sutra, okay, itself, all right? As President Ikeda says, the ceremony, and what have they all said more than anything else? They said it represents something that transcends time and space. Each one of these scholars has made that notation to their edification or their evaluation of what it's conveying, is that it's talking about something that's not at a fixed point. All right? President Ikeda, the ceremony in the air is a realm transcending time and space. It is not a historically specific time or place, which is why he's used these 3 preceding scholars and their interpretations to validate his own assessment. For precisely this reason, we are able to join in the ceremony in the air anytime and anywhere. Right in front of the Gohonzon. That's the whole purpose of it, is to go re-enter the ceremony. Right? By praying to the Gohonzon, which was inscribed based on the ceremony in the air, we become one with the eternal and universal life in the present. The 10 worlds of the past, the 10 worlds of the future, and our life at this moment. And we can open a state of life in which we can survey the entire universe from right where we are, from the state of Buddhahood, of the perception of things as they are, not as they seem to be. Through our daily practice of Gongyo and chanting Daimoku, we can join the eternal ceremony in the air, here and now. We can cause the treasure tower to shine within us and to shine within our life, within our daily activities and lives. That is the wonder of the Gohonzon. A magnificent cosmos of life opens up to us, and reality presents itself as a world of value creation. And what did you just talk about there? He's talking about attaining Buddhahood in your present form. Right. Perceiving the truth as it actually exists. All right? Awakening to the fundamental mystic law. Saito. The fundamental mystic law, the Shakyamuni and all Buddhists have made their object of devotion, is depicted graphically in the Gohonzon. President Ikeda, we have mentioned this before, but there is a poem the Shakyamuni composed when he attained enlightenment. This poem suggests that he became a Buddha by perceiving that the sun of the intrinsic mystic law shone brilliantly in his life and was one with his own life. Morinaka, it reads in part, when the Dharma, This is the poem from Shakyamuni. When the Dharma truly reveals itself in a practitioner who meditates earnestly, at that time he has demolished the forces of the devil and abides in peace. He is just like the sun that shines in the sky. President Ikeda, immediately after attaining this state of enlightenment, Shakyamuni awakened to the law of dependent origination. In other words, to the fact that everything is interconnected and inextricably linked in a web of causal relations. As I've said many times, there's no separation between anything, and is realized in the eradication of karmic relations arising from ignorance. As a result, in other words, you attain Buddhahood in your present form. As a result, all of his doubts and illusions disappeared. He achieved this state of mind through manifesting the Dharma, or law. In other words, the fundamental mystic law, by manifesting the Nam-myoho Renge-kyo in his life, is what that just said. Saito, eradicating karmic relations arising from ignorance and manifesting the fundamental mystic law seems closely connected. There is a sutra record of Shakyamuni saying that whoever sees dependent origination sees the Dharma, and whoever sees the Dharma sees dependent origination. Everybody understands what that just said? Eradicating karmic relations arising from ignorance and manifesting the fundamental mystic law seem closely connected, Saito says on page 177. What is eradicating karmic relations arising from ignorance and manifesting the fundamental mystic law? What is that? That's attaining Buddhahood in your present form. All right? There is a sutra record of Shakyamuni saying that whoever sees dependent origination sees the Dharma, and whoever sees the Dharma sees dependent origination. What is that saying?
To see the truth.
Right, because he just said a minute ago that seeing that, a dependent origination is seeing the truth of the interdependent relationship of all things. So whoever sees dependent origination sees the mystic reality of life, the Dharma. Okay, and whoever sees the Dharma is perceives this interconnectedness of all things. President Ikeda. And we're done. President Ikeda, karmic relations arising from ignorance refers to the cycle of suffering of birth and death caused by fundamental desires or a selfish desire for self-preservation, which are likened to an arrow piercing people's hearts. Everybody understands that, right? Only caring about yourself, seeing only separation between you and all other things. Okay? It means karmic relations arising from innate ignorance or illusion. That specifically one. Okay, that is from our fundamental darkness. Okay? It also refers to the three paths of eternity. It also refers to the three paths of earthly desires, karma, and suffering, the three evil paths, and to the transmigration in the six paths, which is not the attainment of Buddhahood. Fundamental ignorance, so it's delusion. That's all delusion. Boom, right? Fundamental ignorance or illusion gives rise to earthly desires that in turn result in the accumulation of negative karma of various kinds, trapping one in a cycle where one migrates from one state of suffering to the next. Eradicating karmic relations arising from ignorance means to put an end to such transmigration at a root level and to eradicate and break free from the karmic relations that give rise to that cycle. Did everybody understand what that just was talking about? Let me go back a bit. Fundamental ignorance or illusion gives rise to earthly desires that in turn result in the accumulation of negative karma of various kinds, trapping one in a cycle where one transmigrates from one state of suffering to the next. So, what did that just say? Fundamental darkness is what keeps you trapped in the six realms of transmigration. Okay, you never get into the four heavenly realms or whatever, right? Okay, eradicating karmic relations arising from ignorance. Okay, what would that be? Eradicating karmic relations arising from ignorance in a single moment of life
Being a Buddha.
Attaining Buddha?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Eradicating karmic relations from ignorance means to put an end to such transmigration. Because you don't transmigrate in the lower realms once you've transmigrated into the realm of what are the three of the top four? They're all variations of the four, right? Realization or learning, realization, and bodhisattva are all the same thing. They're aspects of Buddhahood, of the fourth, right? Okay, you're with me, right? So putting an end to such transmigration at a root level, which means you've attained Buddhahood, so you never go back into that existing in the six realms again, right? You always attain Buddhahood in every lifetime once you've attained Buddhahood. That's the whole reason you go through the shit to do it, right? Okay, and break free of the karmic relations that give rise to that cycle. You break free of them by attaining Buddhahood. The key to do so is returning to the fundamental mystic law, the foundation of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, a daily thing. It's not because you chant, you can stop chanting. It's not because you believe in chanting, you can stop chanting. You understand? All right, so in contrast to fundamental darkness or ignorance, the fundamental mystic law corresponds to the Dharma nature, or in other words, fundamental enlightenment. Whereas the causes and conditions of suffering and the cycle of birth and death are found in the three paths of earthly desires, karma, and suffering, the way to attaining Buddhahood is found in the three virtues of Dharma, body, wisdom, and emancipation. And what's the difference between earthly desires, karma, and suffering, and the Dharma, body, wisdom, and emancipation? The coolest thing. Why can you take those three and suddenly make them these three?
Because you are.
Because they're the same thing.
Thing.
They're the same thing. They're flips. They're flips. They're flips. You flip earthly desires, karma, and suffering into Dharma, body, wisdom, and emancipation. We awaken to the law, continue on page 178, thereby perceiving our Dharma body. We manifest wisdom, thereby revealing our wisdom, and we gain fundamental freedom from suffering, thereby achieving emancipation. We still have karmic retribution, but it never bothers us. We chant, we overcome it, we utilize it for the sake of the law to teach others the power of the practice.
Yes.
Finally, we put an end to our transmigration through the sufferings of birth and death that we have undergone since time without beginning, and attain the state of life of a Buddha, which is endowed with the four virtues of eternity, happiness, true self, and purity. Moranaka, on attaining Buddhahood in this lifetime, which is the Gosho we're going to go to as soon as we finish reading this book. On attaining Buddhahood in this lifetime, the Daishonin explains that to free ourselves from the sufferings of birth and death, we must perceive the mystic truth that is originally inherent in all living beings. He says that means to do so is none other than chanting Myoho Renge Kyo. Saito, on hearing the doctrine of the Buddha vehicle, the Daishonin says, we living beings have for countless eons in the past embodied the three paths of earthly desires, karma, and suffering. Now, because we have encountered the Lotus Sutra, the three paths have themselves become the three virtues of the Dharma, body, wisdom, and emancipation. Everybody understands, right? You couldn't achieve Dharma, body, wisdom, and emancipation were it not for those three paths of earthly desires, karma, and suffering. There's no Buddhas outside of the enlightened 10 worlds. All right? In the same writing, he cites the principle of changing poison into medicine set forth in Nagarjuna's the treatise on the great perfection of wisdom. He says that by embracing the mystic law, we, whose lives are steeped in the three paths of earthly desires, karma, and suffering, can gain just as we are the three virtues of the Dharma, body, wisdom, and emancipation, and attain Buddhahood. President Ikeda, when we believe in the fundamental mystic law, it becomes manifest within us, and our state of life changes at the very core. We become Buddhas. No longer in theory, in reality. The karmic relations arising from ignorance are eradicated with the mystic law enriching our lives and overflowing into our environment. The world is transformed at a fundamental level. This is the basis of the benefit of the Gohonzon. Morinaka. The presence at the ceremony in the air of living beings of the 10 worlds illuminated by the light of the mystic law is very significant. It means that no matter what their sufferings, living beings can reveal their identity as entities of the mystic law, as Buddhas, can be relieved of that suffering and attain enlightenment through the benefit of the Gohonzon. Page 179, we'll finish the balance of it on Saturday. Okay? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No.
None? I didn't think so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pretty clear.
Thank you.